Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at a card about which I am very excited indeed. There's a new Machamp. And by now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know that I get overly excited about fighting Pokemon. Just yesterday or the day before, depending on when this goes up, I would have shown you that Hisuian Arcanine, which is still like one of the most exciting cards we've seen in a while. I am super hyped for that card. There was no exaggeration in that video. I want that card. But now we got ourselves a Machamp, and I'm going to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. This one has a real chance to be good. For what it's worth, we have been shown the Machamp and the Machoke here. Neither are particularly relevant in terms of attacks. They're vanilla attacks. There's no translations or anything needed. But it is a nice excuse to show off Yukamori's lovely artwork. That is a person who always does the little models out in the world. And of course, Mitsuhiro Arita with that phenomenal Machoke. And if you played Legends Arceus, you'll be like, hey, isn't that where we found the big Machoke running around? And like, yes. Yes, it is, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it is. What we're really here for today is Machamp, and ladies and gentlemen, this Machamp is exciting. Translation, of course, from the lovely Antoine Boulet, who at this stage you should know is one of our very favourites. So what have we got here? Well, we've got 150 HP, which is slightly on the low side for stage 2s, although as we're going to see in a minute, that HP is, well, variable, to put it euphemistically. We've then got a weakness to Psychic, which isn't a particularly huge deal. Although, later stages of the game, Mew could be a bit of a pain. Again, you'll understand when you see the ability. Oh, why don't I just show you the ability rather than beating around the bush? And what the ability says, it's that while your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining, you got 300 HP. Which incidentally is why we see the relevance of something like weakness to Mew, because obviously at this stage, the fact, Mew's generally hitting like 210-ish, so this is where that HP actually starts becoming relevant, and where the weakness becomes relevant, rather than them just one-hit KOing you regardless. And oh my goodness, this is awesome. Like 300 HP is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Bear in mind, if we take V maxes out of the equation, you're left with V star, and generally we're looking at stuff like Arceus that goes up to 280. Even if we bring in V maxes, they only really go up to things like Eternatus with 340. This puts you on the level of big 2 and 3 prize Pokemon. Despite being a single prize Pokemon, this is absolutely huge. And it's going to make a difference. Late in the game, something like, take a Meloetta as an example. Meloetta with 2 energy should be hitting 140, double with weakness is 280. That's not a KO. That is to say, 2 Fusion Strike energy on the board. So now they've got to do something else. And whereas usually when we get up to these high levels of hit points, I'm going, well, there's always Choice Belt. But there isn't, ladies and gentlemen. There isn't Choice Belt. And that's kind of my point here. The fact that Choice Belt gets taken away as an option, and your opponent has got to somehow try and go and get rid of you without using those damage modifiers, that's a big deal. That's like a really genuinely big deal, and it's one of the reasons I love this Machamp so gosh darned much. Sure, your opponent's got to take 3 prizes before this comes in, but when they do, this is going to be fun. Forcing your opponent to go for a 300 HP Pokemon for 1 prize? Yes. But of course, high HP alone is not going to be enough to make us want to play this card. There's got to be something else. What do we got? Well, we've got Strong Arm Lariat. For 2 fighting energy, 100 damage, no thanks. You may choose to do an extra 100 damage. Sounds good. If you do, this Pokemon cannot attack during your next turn. And the whole it can't attack next turn, I mean, look, we've been doing this for years, right? Nobody is sitting there with Mew saying, oh, I can't copy Genesec's attack because then I can't attack next turn. And sure, there are times you can afford to copy another Pokemon's attack, and you absolutely do, but Genesec's attack doesn't make it completely unviable, obviously. And, I mean, we've seen a million over the years. I don't know, Volcanion EX was a thing. That was a really good card. That couldn't attack next turn. There's like a billion others. I'm not going through all of them. The point is, switch, retreat. There are plenty of Pokemon that have had this in the past and haven't really cared. And if you only need to do 100 damage, then you do actually have that wonderful option of going like, you know what? I'll just do 100 and not have to worry about switching or any of that next turn. That actually does remain a really viable thing here. And I like this. Because 200 damage is good. Now, 200 damage isn't perfect, let's be clear. What you really want to hit nowadays is 220. Because 220 is that magic number that will go and get pretty much any Pokemon V. But you know what? Choice Belt. Your opponent can't use Choice Belt against you, but you absolutely can use Choice Belt against your opponent's 2-prize Pokemon. So do it, ladies and gentlemen. Do it. Because now you're hitting 230 and that's wonderful. And it does annoy me, you kind of need Choice Belt here. If you're hitting for weakness, and we'll get to that in a moment, you're fine. If you're not hitting for weakness, you do need Choice Belt. And that's not an ideal situation, and for that I can only apologise. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. But with Choice Belt, you'll be fine. And don't get me wrong, right? Against single prize Pokemon, you're golden. And against things that are weak, you're golden. But against your regular Pokemon V, you will need Choice Belt here. But let's talk about that weakness for a moment. Because you're hitting weakness against Arceus V-Star. And that will drop. And that will be amazing. You will just take it right out. It'll be brilliant. You're hitting weakness against Gengar V-Max. That won't stand a chance. You're hitting weakness against Jolteon V-Max. Admittedly, that's seeing a dip in play, but it's been good in the past. You never know when that might come back. And the funny thing is, that gives up free prizes. And has, by the time they've got free prizes remaining, that's got the same amount of hit points you do. And you only give up one prize. Which is, you also do the same amount of damage, incidentally. You do 200, they do 100 to the active, 100 to the bench. So yeah. That's kind of bragging rights there. And now we are rolling. It's the weakness you're hitting. Hisuian Zoroark. Now, it remains to be seen exactly how good that will be. That set isn't out in Japan yet. But that set definitely has the potential to be a very good set. And that looks like a real good card. And that's weak, and you will absolutely be running through it. So you hit a decent amount of damage, you're hitting a great weakness, and you got 300 HP. The only real issue here becomes the second energy, because it is a 2-energy attack. Oh, and the whole stage 2 thing, we'll get to that in a moment. But you know what? That's all right, ladies and gentlemen. That's all right. I mean, firstly, you've got time. But secondly, stuff like Gritty Pickaxe. That'll work. That's that new item card that should be coming in Astral Radiance. Let's look at the top card of your deck. If it's a fighting energy, attach it to one of your fighting Pokemon. And if it's not, just put it in your hand. It's a draw one. There's no real downside. You could play around, and we've seen this in other typings with the other Galarian birds. But stuff like Galarian Zapdos, you can bench it with 2 fighting energy on. So as long as you do that at some point during the game, then drawing into an energy switch will absolutely do it. And I'm not saying these are perfect situations. You know, Gritty Pickaxe isn't perfect. Using Galarian Zapdos energy switch isn't perfect. But you only need that one extra energy, and this is absolutely possible. And that's my point here. It's not whether it's super easy. It's about whether it's possible. And this absolutely is possible, and that's what I love. Late game, this is a monster. It's also a stage 2. But you don't need it in the early game. I don't think, and do correct me in the comment section if you think I'm wrong about this, I don't think this is necessarily a card you need to use all the way through the game. I don't think you necessarily play Machamp all on its own. What you do instead is you have something else that you lead with, and then Machamp is the late game. And if you're coming in doing 200 damage with 300 HP in the late game, yes! Absolutely yes. Now, of course, in Expanded, this becomes way better because of Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick, which lets you put it straight from the discard pile onto the bench. Only joking, that card's banned, which is actually really annoying because this would be great with Maxie's Hidden Ball Trick. But there is a format some people do like playing. It's a really fun format. It's a gym leader format where you have to pick a typing and you can only have one of each Pokemon, etc. And that is a very fun format. Obviously, in that format, this is going to be an absolute monster. But there's something here. Yes, it's a stage 2 that you've got to get into play, and that's a bit of a pain, etc. I understand all of this. But when you've got 2 energy, and it's not that hard to get the second, and you're hitting 200 damage with 300 HP, it kind of feels like it might be worth going to the effort of getting that Pokemon out now, doesn't it? I'm giving it 4 Wassies, and I know that's too high, and you know that's too high, but I'm excited, and I want to give it 4 Wassies, and it's my video, and you can't stop me. What you can do, however, is argue with me in the comment section, so go nuts, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.